This is called vulnerability right now. And vulnerability is courage. And we're about to talk. So I did not know this would happen. Sorry. I know I asked her to be vulnerable. But we really want to talk about Africa. And this is what we're about to do tonight. Right? Courageous talk. I think, Sarah, you opened the door with the president here. If Kikwete can be vulnerable, I think we can all be. Right? So can we talk tonight? Yes. Mental health, can we cover that? Yes. How we tell our story in media, can we cover that? Yes. How we use our digital power in Africa, can we cover that? Yes. Human capital, how do we raise that? Can we talk about it tonight? But also, how do we use our fashion to tell our story and position ourselves? So, I think we'll take a bit of mesmerizing and just think about Africa. And William, do you love Africa? William, do you love Africa? Show us. Show us.
I'm getting there, you know. I need to do justice to Solomon. But yes, so just to conclude, I would really love to understand mental health in a deeper manner so that at least I can be able to converse with my fellow youth, especially when they're undergoing, you know, some sort of like a breakdown. So our first speaker is called Solomon Serawanja. I hope I said your name correctly. Serawanja. Selwanja. Thank you. He is the executive director of the African Institute for Investigative. He's an investigative journalism. He's also an investigative journalist and news anchor with NBS. He won the BBC World News Komla Dumar Award 2019. But also, Solomon has been recently recognized as one of the 2020 top 100 most influential young Africans. And finally, he is also a loving husband and a father to 4 beautiful children. Therefore, ladies and gents, help me to welcome Solomon!
Thanks a lot. Africa Pamoja. Africa. Pamoja. Africa. Pamoja. I'm so honored to be here. And it's emotional getting on this stage, right? Especially when you're talking about Africa. I believe that investigative journalism has a critical role to play in changing our continent, Africa. I believe that if the media presents itself as the fourth estate to play its watchdog role, then we're able to unearth, things that are keeping us behind as a continent. And it's very, very risky, I should say. I've done 12 years in the journalism game, but about 10 years of my life in investigative journalism. I've covered stories that have had me arrested, my wife arrested, I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about that story. And I've done investigations that have led to the death of people. So sometimes it never occurred to you that if you publish a story or broadcast a story, people are arrested, people commit suicide, people are in jail. One day I was with my wife in a supermarket, and somehow I think I had gone to pick something, and then there's a woman who came to me and told me that the blood of that young man who committed suicide is new. This is about 6 months after the investigation. And so you should know how that made me feel, especially talking about issues of mental health. So today you're a hero, tomorrow you're a zero. So today you talk about, everyone is praising you for having unearthed people who steal medicines from government hospitals and selling them on the black market in South Sudan and in Burundi. And then the next day, the same people who are praising you for having unearthed this are actually telling you that you're a murderer and that you killed people, that you had families' lives ended, that you have had people arrested and put in there. But I believe that those of us who have the audience and the platforms to speak up when social evil is happening in our communities, if we decide to stay silent, then we betray the very society that we live in. So, and that is what investigative journalism is about. Investigative journalism is about, calling out to account, putting the powerful on the spot to answer very tough questions. And I know that the civic space and the freedom of expression in many of our East African countries is shrinking. But someone has got to stand up and be bold enough to put out the tough questions to the people who govern us. Because if you don't, then the status quo will remain. So you're all crying about the corruption that is happening in our local governments and in our mainstream government. And we talk about it in corridors. We talk about it on Facebook or Twitter. No one is brave enough to do that. And if you call yourself a journalist who works in any newsroom across Africa, and you keep quiet when all those things that you don't want to happen in your community, you're betraying your own selves. I'll give you a classic example. I did a story called Stealing from the Sick, and I implore any of you to get on your phones and just put it in and just store it somewhere. It's called Stealing from the Sick. It's a BBC Africa Eye investigation that I did in Uganda that exposed how medical workers in different government hospitals were actually stealing medicines and then exporting it to the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and in Burundi. And so one of the ministers came to me and said, "Thank you so much for doing that story. I was in Burundi the other day. I got sick and I went to a pharmacy and they gave me drugs written on UG not for sale." So I did an investigation going into the underworld of the mafias who are actually doing this trade, right from the high level and to the lowest person in the clinic. It's a well-knitted cartel that operates an underground business, and then they sell the medicines. So at the end of the day, people do not have access to the medicines when they come to hospitals. That investigation was so big that it caused national and international attention. I was summoned to appear before the WHO. I was summoned to appear before the Parliamentary Committee. The August Assembly watched the investigation from start to end. Along the way, several people were arrested, one of whom committed suicide. Now, shortly after all that happened, I was arrested, and the whole crew and my wife spent 3 nights in jail because she refused to disclose where I was. Now you can imagine, you are somewhere and your wife tells you, "Hi honey, I hear people walking in the compound. I don't even know how they came in. What's going on? Come home." And I'm saying, "Can you look through the window?" She's saying, "I can see men in uniform walking around. What's going on? What did you do?" And she said, "Come home. We are worried. Come home." And then I noticed, I'm like, okay, now this is getting crazy. And she said, "If you don't come home, I don't know what to do. I'm alone with the babies. And what do I do?" I said, "Just be strong. Lock every door and make sure that every window is locked up." She was picked up, taken into the jail cells, and when my children were watching their mother being arrested for a crime she did not actually commit, but her husband, because he's an investigative journalist. So she was in there for a couple of days. Later on, I had to surrender myself to the police. I was put in. I told them, if you want me to come in, then you release my wife. So I came in for an exchange. My wife was released, and I was in there for just a few hours because of public demand. Somehow the truth stood for me, and I was released. And that, in a way, was shaking to me. I mean, I had been arrested before for stories I did before. I investigated the cocaine and heroin trade in Uganda. I investigated the guys who are behind the sale of ivory and bushmeat business in Uganda. I've done risky stuff. And my wife sat me down and told me, you know what? Do you care about us? And I said, yes, I do. I do care about you and our children. And she said, you've got to stop. You've just got to stop. Stop just doing these investigations. Especially after her arrest. She's like, do you love us? I said, yes, I do. I love you. And then she said, just do me one favor. Please sit home. There's nothing more you can prove. You know, you've won all the awards. You have 25 awards on your shoulder. You're one of the celebrated journalists around the world. I told her, I can't. There's just something in me that just doesn't stop. Like, I cannot keep quiet when I see wrong things are happening. You know, and it was sad for me to tell her the truth, but I had to tell her. I told her it's just, I would be lying to myself. Like, if I stopped, I would have lost my purpose in life, because maybe this is what I was born for. Maybe I was born for investigative journalism. Maybe I was born to be the person who is going to stand and put the truth to power and ask the tough questions and risk my life so that the truth is exposed, so that maybe my children will live a better life even when I'm gone. And I think that's what life is about. So if you are seated in a community and you see all the wrong things happening and you fear because you're going to be arrested or you're going to be killed or even kidnapped, listen, at the end of the day, how do you go to bed, put your head down and say, well, I have children to look after, I have a wife, and tomorrow your children will be sick, or you will be maybe up country and you are pregnant, perhaps you've gone to do a project up country, and then your water breaks and you have to be rushed to the nearest health center. But because you've not spoken out about, mama kits being stolen or medicine being stolen, your insurance will not help you. It will be the health center too where you'll go for you to get an operation or even to get a delivery. And because you didn't mention nothing about it, you will lose your life. So at the end of the day, I implore you, I dare you to go where other people fear. I dare you to challenge the people in power. I dare you to stand for the truth. I dare you to put your foot forward and say, it will not happen in my community. I choose to take the bullet for the truth. And I know I'm asking you for too much. But at the end of the day, what matters is one thing. Silence is violence. Good evening. Oh, right next is Lillian. Lillian is coming up next, but I'll give the mic to our moderator.
I'm also repeating that. Silence is violence. So thank you for that inspirational talk. And you've just inspired me to make an action. But before Lillian comes, Abella, I would like to know why Pamoja Talks.
I was supposed to be doing this with Ivan. Is he here? Otherwise, I represent him. I don't know how you follow that, so I'm sorry for my conversation, but just entertain me for a minute. Because that, sometimes when someone speaks, you just want to sit on it for a minute, right? Thank you, Solomon. But why Pamoja Talk? So this has been a dream that I think was birthed 2-3 years ago. And the idea is very simple. How can a continent so beautiful, so rich, can be so poor and so full of disease? How can we be so spiritual and very corrupt? So we're trying to look at how can we have such innovative young people? How can we be the biggest population of the young continent in the nation, in the world, and yet the most unemployed, the most uneducated? It doesn't make sense. So do we have answers? We don't. But can we talk about it? Maybe we can. And I think this is how we are starting. And Solomon, thank you for starting us the conversation. And without further ado, please contribute to the talk. Our hashtag is One Young Africa, right? And these are the Pamoja Talk. And why we are sitting on this behind beautiful Peter painted paint is because this is how, according to Peter, our community used to meet in the village bunge and deliberate on the issue of the community to find solutions. So I think our question is, can we find solutions tonight? Can we begin a conversation that bring local solution for local challenges? Lillian Madeje.
Yo. Hi, everyone. I'm not really sure, man. Solomon, you just opened us up on a whole other level. Good evening, everyone. The name is Lillian Sachilela Madeje. And I'm here to take you through a story of a girl called Lillian, or Sachilela. Sometimes I think I have multiple personalities, but it's okay. I am passionate about people. I am passionate about innovations. I am passionate about technology. And through each and every random thing that you ever see me doing, at the core of it all is I want to see some type of transformation. Developed people develop nations. Earlier this afternoon, after Bella pulled me into this, I'm like, okay, what am I going to be speaking about? Because much as I usually stand and do public speaking, there is something about actually standing and being vulnerable. And that's what I'm going to try to do, but I'm not going to top Solomon. Solomon, man, that just took me. I think I need a session just to go through that. But develop people, develop nations. Why did I start with that particular terminology? 9 years ago, a young girl called Lillian was excited and looking for a job, adamantly applying for roles everywhere that she could find. And honestly, for anybody out there who's about to graduate, about to look for a job, like I think in a month I would do like 50 different types of applications. So I really don't get it why when I meet youth these days, there's like, when did you graduate? 2019. How many applications have you done? 5. I'm like, I was doing 50 in a month. But anyways, back to the story. So 9 years ago, I met an amazing lady called Modesta Mahiga. And I sat on an interview with her. I was passionate about her passion for Africa and her passion for people who will actually transform Africa. But I was actually going to her because she had a company and I needed a job and she could actually place me somewhere. And I did my interview with her. After I finished the interview, Modesta goes like, are you willing to work for me? I'm like, hey, who works for who? Me, I was here looking for a job. Now you're telling me that I have to work with you, but that's a different one. But long story short, I started working with her. And the tagline, developed people, develop nations, is the tagline that her company had, Professional Approach Group. I started as a team coordinator, literally running around the office, coordinating the different teams that were doing different things. In 4 years, I was able to move from team coordinator to something which I forgot. And I was actually able to resign as the managing director for one of our entities. And what we were doing is literally training and working within the human capital industry in Tanzania. Now, if anybody told me 9 years ago that I would actually be having under my belt 3 companies, I would definitely tell them that they're joking, because Modesta, that woman, I do love her, and she's somebody who has mentored me tremendously. She was very adamant in telling me that she sees something in me. Mia's like, I don't see anything in me. Mia, I'm just here. I want my money. I'm going to pay 8 to 5. I'm good. She made me work through 5, and I learned the art of actually putting your best out there and just being great at whatever it is that you're given. And for anyone out there, if you're ever going to say that I multitask, you better put yourself to the task of multitasking, because she made sure that I multitasked. And she would give you that assignment that, I remember she once gave me an assignment of doing a report. I didn't know how to do a report. And this is for a client who is, it's not like your SME client. This is like your corporate client, and you have to do a report. But she would give it to you, and she's like, yeah, sort it out. And you would sort it out, and you would make it work. So just fast forward. 9 years later, I have 3 companies under my belt. I am more than ever passionate about building talent. Talent. Why talent? Because within these 9 years, I have poured through over, just like taking over the last major graduate program recruitment that we've done, more over 9,000 or plus CVs of Tanzanian graduates. And it's CVs of Tanzanian graduates. But what more do we have? Of those Tanzanian graduates that I actually get to see, there is so much more that we need to do. And that's where I come in. I was thinking when I came about with the Niajiri platform, which is, I call it my newest baby in town. She's 3 years old. I was thinking, how do I figure out, how do I build the skills of these youth without thinking, how do I build the skills of this youth as I'm trying to make a business model out of it? I remember, so this particular idea came about while I was doing my MBA project, and I presented it as a capstone project to my professor, and she vividly told me, like, Lillian, what exactly do you want to do, right? Do you want to create quality for just, the top graduates, people who are already identified that they will go to the KPMGs and they'll go to the Deloittes and everything like that? Or do you want to really transform the whole innovation, the whole ecosystem, literally? And I was like, but I want to transform the whole ecosystem. She's like, you don't have a business model if you're looking at transforming the whole ecosystem. But that's where my passion is. Because when I walk around and I see people and I'm like, how can I help you do something better? How can I help you transform your mindset to actually see the value that you have and what you can do in transforming, in changing? In going to Solomon is like doing introspective with yourself so that you can actually be and do better. And I went with the former, with the latter, that I want to really transform the ecosystem of talent in Africa. I call Tanzania my launching pad. And from literally 2017, when I had scrapped in large sticky notes, I love sticky notes. If anybody has come to my office, I have many of them. And if I do any workshop sessions, I have sticky notes. We started with 0, 2017. We have scaled to 21,000, 22,000 users of Niajiri. There's opportunities, and not just opportunities, but we're looking at scaling. So I was looking just at Tanzania, but looking at scaling into West Africa by next year, looking into scaling into South Africa by next year. And all of these things just started. And as we're clapping, woman is still trying to make a buck out of this. Even though I look good and I look fine, it comes down to the passion. I'm still trying to figure out, how do I still make sure that I transform everybody's lives that is touched by Niajiri, right? And that when they come to the platform, because the thing was, how do I multiply Lillians? Lillian cannot be at every point in time. I do meet people, I mentor, but I'm like, I can only have so many 5 minutes with 1, 2 people. But how do I design a system? How do I make sure that this can be scalable? How do I make sure that this can be viable, that more of Africa can actually access? It's the little things that we're talking about here. How to make your CV. You think it's easy, but after you receive 9,000 CVs, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's things as communication. How do you communicate? How do you do your interviews? And then we're moving on past one, from entry level to mid level. Emotional intelligence when you're at the workspace, managing your stress levels. Very simple things that you'd look at them as it's nothing, but they really do help to transform people, and they help you to think better. So that is where I started. Developed people, developed nations. It starts with people. You can have the systems, you can have whatever you can build, but if the people who are supposed to run these do not know the value that they have, do not know that they are more impactful than they could ever be, we would not get to where we want to get. And that is my passion. And that is what keeps me up at night. That is what I would strive for, and I have literally gone to the hospital for stressing, and then I'm really waiting for the last talk in terms of managing stress. Like, I've been to the hospital because of this. I'm trying to really just give my whole into this. But I do know that, and how I get repaid, it's not in money. It's in somebody, an obvious. 3 weeks ago, there's a lady who came and she's like, Lillian. And I'm like, I am the worst, guys. Forgive me if you meet me anywhere. I'm really bad with faces and names, but I do hope to. This is like when they ask me, what is that 1 week challenge that you have and in an interview? Like, that's one thing I continuously will work on. But she told me, this is how I think transformation happens and mentoring happens. We sometimes think it's a program, right? I have 2 vivid examples. There's a gentleman I had picked up, and this is 2014, maybe 13. I was doing a radio show at Clouds, Choice FM by then, and it was called The Link Connecting Business Mind. And I was coming out of the office that day. It was a Saturday. It was running every day, every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this kid had gone to Clouds. He was taking his mixtape, and he needed a trip back, I think, to Mikocheni. And it was raining, so I was like, it's okay, you can get on the car. Literally, that drive did not take more than 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But I started just questioning him, what are you doing, whatever. And that was it, 15, 20 minutes. This kid dropped out of my car. I'm like, cool, pieces. This was 2014. 2 years later, I think around January, I get a call. Who is this? And he's like, hey, Dada, I don't think you remember me. Obviously, I do not remember you. He starts to, remind me what it is. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, Dada, I just called you. You do not understand. I'm in Shinyanga right now. I am officer of culture na sanaa or something. Kupitia, sorry, I'm going to Swahili, but some officer of culture arts under the government system. After talking to you, I just really started. That was a 15-minute talk that I took nothing into it. You never know what you're planting, what seeds you're doing when you actually give somebody time. Another lady, this is a program that I did in 2012 while I was under Professional Approach, which was at VETA, and it was a 6-week program, but one of the ladies that was actually a participant called me up 2017. Again, same thing. Dad, I don't think you remember me. I do not remember you, God forbid. But she's like, you did the course more than 4 years back. I'm calling you right now just to tell you that you actually transformed my mindset. I am where I am. And she told me she's working for a company, and she was, she was as a plumber. And I'm like, wow, okay. And she's like, she was one of the few women who were actually at the technical training institution by then. But that is how I get repaid. And that is the thing that keeps me awake at night and early in the morning to wake up and think, how can I actually be a transformation? How can I make sure that my Africa stands tall and my Africa continues to show the rest of the world that we are kick-ass and we're not here to play? Developed people, developed nations. Thank you. Oh wait, this you see, it is really hard. When you give your whole, someone understand you. I forgot. But I would like to welcome onto the stage an amazing gentleman. This is another one of those gentlemen that I actually met. Rio, I think we met 7 some plus years ago. And we've never been that close, to be honest. But I've been watching you from the sidelines, and seeing your growth and seeing just your transformation has been amazing. And so it is my honest pleasure to welcome to the stage Rio.
Woo! We. We. Okay, some energy. I think two of my previous panelists have been really touchy. And first of all, I'm proud of you, Solomon. Lillian, I've known Lillian through as Modesta and Abela. I just want you guys, I'm giving you a shout out, by the way. These ladies are inspirational. One of the things that Abela might not remember is that Abela and Modesta Lillian Mahiga taught me how to draft my first CV at 13 years old. I'm pretty emotional because, yes, at 13 years old, outside our church, they taught me to write my first CV. And you'd ask a 13-year-old kid, why a 13-year-old kid wants a CV? So I am going back to my story. Stories of victory always favor the victors. But what about us who don't win? Ladies and gentlemen, that's where my story begins. My name is Paul Peter Siniga. I am a 27-year-old. I majored in international relations and diplomacy, but I have a huge passion for fashion, and I turned passion into my career. By the way, my South African designer friend sent this, so you know, because the dress code said some African touches. So, going back to my journey, it's been an uphill climb of ups and downs, resilience and triumph. For a 27-year-old kid to be in fashion for more than 10 years, it's pretty much amazing, I would say. It's not easy, but it's pretty much amazing. When I had the idea in high school to start my own brand of image consultancy, nobody would believe in me, and nobody in Tanzania knew what image consultancy was. They confused me with a designer. And I'm like, I don't like to sew clothes. I don't like how to put things together. I just like to play around with clothes and make people look presentable. And I didn't know I was going to make money out of it because it was still a fresh profession in Tanzania. And I was in high school. So nobody really, my homeroom teacher never understood what I wanted to do. I was always late for the yearbook pictures. But it's always good to have friends who would understand your vision. And that's one thing this journey has taught me. So through high school, I didn't do well in my Form 4 because I was busy chasing my dreams. And that was a huge disappointment for my father, and I think my late mother too were very disappointed. But I didn't also give up because I knew I messed up and I gotta pay the debts. Yeah, I come from the north of Tanzania, so we're pretty much huge in debts. We have to pay the debts. So I decided to go to college for my undergrad studies. I went to the Center for Foreign Relations, and Lord, I tell you guys, that place changed my life. At college, I was forced to learn life the way adults did. Yep. I was forced to have skills that I didn't know before on dealing with different kinds of human personalities. And we all know some humans come with their package. I had to learn the hard way. But I'm thankful because it showed me how of a strong young man in entrepreneurship I can be. 2008 to 2013, I established my brand, Real Pole Company Limited. I was trademarked in 2013 as the first Tanzanian stylist. A stylist means image consultancy. In 2014, I got enough money to open a company, friends loans and things like that. I was never really a winner, to be honest. And that's what I want to share about here. My story is all about failure to resilience. In the middle of all this, now forget the other problems I had. In the middle of all this, I was still taking care of my epileptic mother, who sometimes had cases and seizures and things like that. And it gave me anxiety. Until today, we've laid her to rest, but I'm still battling anxiety issues because I was always afraid that one day I'm going to lose my mom somewhere in the streets, or she might fall down and hurt herself. So it's still in me, and it's a hard journey, but I feel like people need to understand that even the Lillians and the Solomons and people who stand on these stages bear a certain burden that is very, very human, and they need the empathy to grow. Forget about my mom now. Two more problems. Yeah, sorry, I'm a problem guy. My country didn't have the regulations on how fashion business were to be regulated. So that's another challenge. You go to this sector, they tell you, but we don't understand what sector is that. We just know there is like designers, and it wasn't really a profession that people took into account. I'm glad they do now because they see the money, Yeah, thank you guys. Shout out to you. But now they see the benefits of having creatives, incorporating creatives into the economy, because the creative industry contributes a lot of money to the economy. So now people are starting to understand. But back to another problem. Africa, though we are one, but each country is very decisive on the actions they take. So how do I, a kid with $1 million dream of cutting across Africa, African fashion, how would I grow my dream? Because I didn't just want to be in Tanzania. I wanted my work to be acknowledged across borders, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, everywhere. How does this kid from the streets of Dar es Salaam get up there? Question mark. Uni teaches you a few things that maybe life teaches you or life doesn't teach you. But I'm thankful that I have like-minded people. Through the entrepreneurship journey in Tanzania, I've learned that we young people need to also adjust our business models to solve African challenges with African solutions. One thing, yes, we need to solve Afro problems with Afro solutions. Starting my brand was easy, but running it, hard. I'm speaking on my 3rd year of my company being dormant. You can understand how hard that is. And the title director doesn't feel very powerful, does it, when your company is dormant? But I just want to show young people out here that people can have CVs on their business cards. But what truly matters is the work ethic that you put into your brand. I choose to come here and talk to you people is because I believe in everyone who's here has a dream to create an advanced Africa. Yeah? That's why we're all here. To advance Africa in one way or another in our different industries or different initiatives that we partake on. So on a series of failures, on a series of making good money and not making good money, and my work being seasonal, and working with some of the biggest people in the industry, getting access to Paris, New York, London, and South Africa, I still failed. But I don't call myself a failure. It's just that little thing that tells you as an entrepreneur, oh, you're not good enough. You're not perfect enough. But to me, just like Solomon and Lillian said earlier, there's a calling that you have to keep pursuing. There's a calling that you have to keep persisting. And that's what I'm going to keep on doing. Enough with the sadness, guys. Yeah, it's been a fun ride learning, driving a fashion company in Tanzania. And one thing that I'm very proud of, it's made me meet so many like-minded people who have nurtured me into the man I am today. My company might not be a successful company, but it did show me the tricks of the trade. That if you want to build a strong foundation as a young African entrepreneur, you have to think local meets global. You don't have to think global meets local. You have to use and you have to compromise and steer yourself to fit into the African market. Because if you look at the demographics of African fashion consumers, there are plenty. But why are our designers, our stylists, our makeup artists, our musicians still dying poor? What is the question? It's because we say we support them, but we don't invest in them. There is a need for all of us. There's a need for all of us to reimagine Africa with a new perspective. Buying local, buying African doesn't mean you're mshamba. I mean, I know this looks good, and a few people have actually. So, especially with young people, we have a lot of presence of social media where social media narrates what is good or bad for us. And this, I urge my fellow young people. I work in fashion, and I know that we are the change for Africa. If we decide to invest in African businesses, African brands, then these people will be able to access more funding to grow their brands and to cater to bigger markets. Yeah, we will in turn have our own Gucci's, our own Roberto Cavalli's, our own, our own big. And I know most of you here are intellectuals, or what is this fashion guy saying? But guys, I have also used fashion as a force for change. Now that takes me to my second story. Why did I decide to engage in youth advocacy and social change by using my fashion platform? When I entered into the industry, I felt like it was all glitz and glamour, and everything was very cliquish. And I told myself, all these big artists that you've had the opportunity to work with, why aren't they doing even a little for their communities? And I always had the urge. I remember asking Vanessa someday this question. And she's like, but Rio, if you feel there's something in you, go for it. And I went for it. And the transformation happened. I got to work with the United Nations in Tanzania to advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals. I am very happy and excited to champion goal number 4 and 5, education and gender equality. I feel like if you have a voice as a young African, the little that you can do, create impact. And this is my advice to all of you. Make sure in anything you're doing, it's people-centric and it creates impact. Because that's way you're transforming someone's life for the better. We always tend to judge ourselves that, oh, I don't have the funding, I don't have the access, I don't have this. But what are you doing for the girl next door? What are you doing for the grandma in the next house? Are you talking to these people and, building bridges? Are you helping them overcome mental issues? Are you helping the girl or the boy child understand about menstrual education? These are things that we need to keep championing as delegates here, as organizers. I urge you guys to use your voices to make change. I am a fashion guy that's people-centric, that's development savvy, and a fun person. And despite of all the trauma and failures, but I'm still standing because what I believe in is stronger than anything, and it's the African dream. I've talked a lot, but let's tell African stories the way we want to tell African stories, and let's use our voices for change. I don't want to say much because I'm a politician, but but thank you guys for the podium, and my name is Rio, and I would like to introduce the next guest, who I'm appreciative of. Where is she? He. Oh. So, ladies and gentlemen, the tech guy, the fashion guy, now the tech guy, Given.
Thank you. Hello. Great. That was really great, Bria, and all the speakers that spoke before. But the one thing that I think has cut across all the speakers so far is a calling, right? It's where you have to really be committed to something and stick to it. In other words, solve a problem that only you can solve. Choose a mountain to die trying to climb, right? Because because that's really what everyone who spoke before me has kept on saying over and over again. That yeah, I'm facing challenges, but this is the mountain I'm going to die trying to climb, right? It's less about climbing, it's less about reaching on top, but the conviction that I have to climb this mountain, right? The journey, the struggle is the reward at the end of the day. Now, there's this researcher who took 5 monkeys and he put them in this big cage. And then what he did is, on top of it, he hanged a banana, right? And whenever any of the monkeys would try to touch the banana, he would pour water on them. Then after a while, these monkeys picked up the clue, like this guy is not really moved by us trying to touch that banana, so they stopped touching it. And then after a while, the researcher took one monkey out because he realized they are not touching it for a very long time, and put a new one in. And this new monkey naturally tried to also get that banana, right? And the other ones were like, are you trying to get us killed? It's not something, we don't do that here. And so when he did that, all the others stopped the monkey. And then after a while, the researcher took another monkey out, and he put another monkey in, and it's the same thing. He was wondering, why are these guys just staying here while there's a banana on top? And the other, and the guy is like, yeah, they don't do that here. And then they stopped doing it. And so this happened so much so until it got to a point where all the original 5 monkeys are out, and all who are there are monkeys that were not in the original water games, right? But still none of them would touch the banana, you get. And so what do we have now? We have 5 monkeys with a banana on top of them. None of them is touching it, none of them knows why. You understand? And this is pretty much like culture and tradition. Because everything that because it's passed down from one person to another. And nobody can tell you why, it's just that we don't do that here. Right? And for me, that's something that really bothers me. Because there's a saying that tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. And for me, I feel like that's really true. Because in the end of the day, the things we are not doing, we don't even understand why we're not doing them. But we just know it's not something we do, right? And where it bothers me the most, what really bothers me the most is in one aspect, in education, right? It took 68 years for the airplane to get 50 million users. 68 years. But it took Twitter only 2 years, right? It took Pokemon Go 19 days, right? But throughout 100 years, the way we learn is still the same. Nothing has changed about it. If a dead person was to wake up right now and explain how school is, it would be the same way a kid in class 7 would explain right now. Nothing has changed. And so for me, that's something that really bothers me, and it's a hill I'll die trying to climb, because I feel like it needs to change. The main reason why it needs to change is because if we change the way we learn, I'm not talking about just subjects, but the overall way we learn, I think what's going to happen is we're going to rediscover our place as Africa in the world. Because the way we are learning right now isn't a model that was originally African. It is a model that we saw working on other places and we brought in. And so we decided to do it. And it was adopted at a time where it needed to be adopted. By the time Tanzania got independence, we had, I think, 9 doctors and 12 teachers. And so what was really needed was a lot more 9-to-5s. People who would work in factories and places, 9 to 5, etc. And there was a contract, a social contract that was signed in the back of our head. It was, if you go to school and you stay in school and you do well in school, you'll get a job. That was the contract. And we have all lived by it. But what we don't understand is the reason behind the contract. Initially, the reason for that contract was that we need more people who can do 9-to-5s. We need people who can follow instructions because we are trying to produce. Yeah. So here we are right now, 50 years later. We have more than enough people we need, right? And people are wondering, why are there no jobs? It's because what we are doing right now isn't what serves us at this moment. And so whenever people say the education system is broken, I usually say it's not broken. It's doing exactly what it was created to do. It just happens that we need a different thing right now, and it's not what the education system was created for. It's like if you have a coffee machine, and then all of a sudden you want juice, you don't say the coffee machine is broken. It's really functioning perfectly. It's just that what you're looking for is not what it was created to do. And so that's why the entire African continent is struggling with that. It's not that people are not smart. It's not that the government is failing. It's not. It's just that what we are looking for is a different thing. So our education system doesn't need fixing. It needs a redesign with what we are trying to get. Right now, if you look at the entire world on the leading educational systems, one thing you realize is all the best education systems started from the beginning. From Finland, for instance. They started from the beginning and started questioning everything. Why are we doing this? And I think we can do this in education as well. I think we should do this. I think it's something that would really change our continent, because Africa is full of innovation. We just need to find a way to tell it in the current world. How can you say Africa is not innovative when we were growing up, we had our baby walkers made from wood? Right? How can you say Africa is not innovative when our mothers, when they were growing up, they didn't have to buy coconut from the shops? They had kibao chambuzi, and they created that. So how exactly is Africa not innovative when we were growing up, we didn't have to buy dolls, we created them. We didn't have to buy soccer balls, we created them. So the question remains, when did that stop? Right? At what point exactly did we realize we need to define innovation by other standards, and we need to be taught innovation by other people? Right? And so that's something I think we need to do. It's not something that's easy. It's not something that's easy because nothing worth doing has ever been easy. Right? It's something that's you're going to get pushed back a lot. And I'm not talking just about education at this point. I'm talking about anything that you feel you really, really have to do. The hill that you choose, I'm going to die climbing. Right? For Lillian, that's human capital. Right? There's investigative journalism. There is fashion and helping artists. Rio sat and thought, okay, how come we love artists but nobody is really, all artists are dying poor? Why is this? Right? There are so many questions, so you just have to pick one and say, this is the hill that I'm going to die climbing. Because we need people. What we need There's a quote that says, what the world needs isn't people what the world needs is people who are turned up. What the world needs is people who come alive. Because those are people who will solve problems. And so I think that's what we should push for. Because that's what we need. You're going to face challenges. But Steve Jobs said it best. We need crazy ones. And I quote, he said, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in square holes, the one who see things differently, the ones who are not fond of rules. They have no respect for status quo, and you can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Right? Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see them as genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who usually do. Right? And so that's something that I feel we all need. We don't need to do things that make sense to others. I mean, look at the world around us. If this works, does it look like it works, whatever it is? Right? If it's the education system, does it look like it works? And that's what Albert Einstein said. Stupidity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Right? And so let's think about it that way. Whatever you think about education system, does it look like if you follow what everybody did, it works? In the fashion and in all those aspects. Like I said, it's going to be challenging, but it's something that needs to be done. And Theodore Roosevelt said it, that you're going to be criticized, but you need to keep on going. Because in his words, and I quote, he says, the credit does not belong to the man who is on the ground. The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs, who comes short again and again, who strives valiantly. But at least, if he fails, he will fail daring greatly, so that his place in history shall not be with those cold and timid souls that know neither success or defeat. And so that's what I'm going to ask you, to pick an area, to pick a mountain you're going to die climbing. For me, it's education, and for you, it could be anything. But don't expect it to be easy, because nothing worth doing is easy, and you're the man in the arena. You're not the man who is speaking from outside. Thank you. The previous speakers spoke about how challenging this all is, and it has been for me as well. The stresses of it, the questioning of it all, and sometimes you just sit and ask yourself, what was I thinking, right? And climbing this mountain. Of course, people have tried. What did I think I was, right? There are a lot of those moments, but they all come back to one thing: mental health. Because nothing really is going to keep you going like the way you speak to yourself when things are tough. And I usually say, speak to yourself the way you speak to somebody you love. Right? If a person you cared about was facing challenges, you wouldn't tell them, you're a failure. You do not deserve to do this. So that's how you should also speak to yourself whenever you're facing challenges. Right? And that's why mental health is something that's very important to speak about. That's why our next speaker, all the way from Jamaica, is going to speak about exactly that. Natasha. There you go.
So as Natasha is coming up, I have a very humble request for everyone. Everyone behind there, can I humbly ask to kill the chatter so that we can focus on the conversation? I want to believe if you're sitting here, you're really sitting here to join us. If you really don't want to be here, we'd appreciate if you take the chatter a little bit further. We love you because this is really healing some of us, right? So we'll appreciate if you can do that, but let's be, especially in the coming talk, right? Be present here so we are all one spirit. Thank you.
Dante. Ooh, it's bright up here. Ooh. Ooh. So I'm going to be honest. I'm nervous. And what I do with nervousness is I acknowledge it. I see you, I feel you, and I'm still going to move. It's very bright. So I have a quote that says, Jamaica gave birth to me, America raised me, but Africa bring me back to my true self. So I'm going to talk about something very deep, mental health. And I ask you to come on the journey with me. I invite you all to come on the journey with me about mental health. So I'm Natasha, and I'm going to just tell you a definition of what mental health is and see, so we all can be on the same page, so I'm not speaking something else. So mental health is how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, your emotions, your behavior, how you relate to other people, how you manage stress. So that's what mental health is in a nutshell. And also how you connect with, how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem. So can everybody agree that we all have mental health? Do we all think, we all feel, we all have behavior, we all have to connect with other people, we all get stressed out, right? So we all can agree that we have mental health? Okay, thank you. So mental illness, however, that's something completely different. So mental illness is more for disease. So like diabetes is something that happens to the body, right? But mental illness is something that happens to your brain. So we all know different mental illness, like depression, the anxiety. So that's what they look like. So what is mental illness? So mental illness is a significant dysfunction and impairment in your thinking, your behavior, and also your emotions. And what does that look like? So that look like, for example, in your thinking, some of us, in your thinking, that can be very, I would say, I don't want to say negative, I would say very destructive thinking. That looks like suicidal thinking, sometimes hallucination, seeing things, hearing things. Behavior, it can look very destructive from, I would say, risky behavior. It can look like self-harm. It can look like, I would say, oversleeping or undersleeping or not sleeping, insomnia. It can also look like, I would say, overeating and not eating sometimes. And in your emotions, it looks like, I would say, extreme sadness, extreme anxiety to the point sometimes you can't get out of bed, but to the point where the things that you enjoy, pleasure or in your life, you're not doing anymore, like things that bring you joy, you're not able to do anymore. That's what mental illness can look like. And what leads to a mental illness is when you don't care for your mental health. So I'm going to tell you a story about my own journey and why I became, all of our first speakers talk about their calling, their passion, why I became so passionate about this fight for mental health and just overall healing and wellness. So I'm a social worker by trade. I guess that's what they call it nowadays, right? Trade. So I was a social worker, and I was working, but backtrack before I became a social worker. So it was 2015, and I know we're all into hashtags, right? So if 2015 have a hashtag, that the first half of the year, it would be living my best life. Well, so like on social media, that's what they would say, right? And when I say living my best life, that's what you see in social media, but in the real, that's not what my best life was. So let me just get to the story. So it looks like that year, I was getting ready to go to Trinidad, to go to Carnival. I was finishing my first year of my master's. The first year I graduated with honors. I quit my corporate job, and I went to start to work for a nonprofit with women with an organization that have high infant mortality rate in that's Harlem, New York. And then the summer, I went to Italy for my birthday. And then between August of that year to November, I gained 40 pounds. And us women, I can only speak for women, us women, we don't know that we gained those 40 pounds and somebody said, ooh, girl, ooh, Natasha, you gained a couple of pounds there. I was like, and that's when I started to get self-conscious. I was like, what happened? What's happening in my life that my weight can, because I always have a weight problem from I was younger till I would say until I figure out what the problem was. So I had to take a deeper look within myself. What was going on in analyze myself. What was happening in my life where my weight continued to be an issue, and not my weight, but what's going on in my life. So I had to take a deeper analysis, and it was when I sat with myself and I analyzed, is it that I was working full-time, I had a full-time job, I was going to school full-time, I had an internship, and also I was actually in a very unhappy relationship. For 5 years, I was with a man that I wasn't truly happy about. But because I have a fear of being alone, I stayed in that relationship. And I had to make a choice because I know for my life, I couldn't continue living in this unhappy space. And food was the thing that soothed me. That was the only tool I had in my toolbox. When life got hard, the only thing I had in my toolbox was food. Food to comfort me when I feel those very unpleasant feeling. Food to comfort me when I feel happy. Food was my only tool. And that's how I gained those extra pounds. But even deeper, so I had to make a choice. I was like, are you going to go on a journey are you going to go on your healing journey, or are you going to stay in something that was bringing you so much unhappiness? And I left that relationship. I went on my journey. I went down a path that was unknown, and I went on my own, and I started my healing journey in 2016. And imagine, because I was also doing mental health therapy. So I was a mental health therapist getting a mental health therapy. So I sat with a therapist, and I was very sure. That's one thing. When you're an expert and then you go to another expert, you already kind of figure out, like, in your head, like, this is what they're going to say, that's what they're going to do. And I'm like, and I will come in there well prepared about what this person is going to tell me. I already know that. And I was going around this story, because we all have some stories, right, that we carry around. This happened. So I was carrying around a story that my parents abandoned me. I didn't talk to my mom for 17 years. My mom said something to me when I was like 13 she said that I was lucky that she didn't have an abortion with me. And from that day, when I was 13, I never spoke to her for 17 years. And I was kind of on a story that she abandoned me, she didn't love me. And I made up in my mind that there's no way this relationship could ever be healed. And I told my therapist this, and he was like, did you ever ask her story? I'm like, what? She didn't have no story. She's the one that did what she did to me. And I was already made up in my mind that she's the one that was to be blamed. But as the inquisitive person that I am, I was like, okay, he has a point. She may have a story. But whatever it is, I need to figure it out, because I need to have some type of closure in this story. So I called my mom up, which I haven't spoken to in 17 years, and I said to her, what you did to me impacted me. It impacted my life for a very long time. And she immediately started to cry, and she started telling me her story. And I heard her story. Her own mom abandoned her when she was young, and how she never knew what love was. And she went through it. My mom has like 7 kids from 5 different baby daddies. That's what they called it in America. And it's because she was looking for love in these different faces. And the more she told me about her story and not having a family and looking for things different, like, the more I understand why she was the way she was. You know, our parents can only teach us what they know. And that's how I was able to, my method of healing was to forgive her. I'm not saying that our relationship is perfect. It's an ongoing process. And the story with my mom is again, it's an ongoing process. But when I talk about healing, it's like an onion. You see, it's like an onion, so it's forever unpeeling the layers. And I realized that a lot of times Natasha, was acting out of my trauma. And one of my trauma is being a sexual trauma survivor. And when I get into relationships, I was acting from that space of I can't trust you, or you're gonna do something to me, I'm not safe. And I would say that what really transformed my life is adopting a holistic lifestyle, because a lot of times healing look like, oh, I'm just gonna take care of my physical health. But I believe that we're whole people, therefore we need to be healed holistically. And holistic healing look like mind, body, spirit. It looks like what it physically. I believe in natural healing. We're in Mama Africa. Hello. I mean, go to the river. I mean, sometimes I go to the river and I just cry and let it out. I mean, there's so many natural things around us to heal us, to ground us. So I believe in natural healing. And when that look like physically, the walking, the running, I mean, just breathing. When it comes on to spirituality, spirituality is not religion. We're all born with spirituality. The same energy, life force that's in me is within you. And I believe in cultivating that every day with yourself and with your creator, whosoever you call your creator. And they look like the meditation. They may look like yoga. That may look like an affirmation. That may look like reading your scriptures. What does that look like to you? When it comes on to, I would say, emotional health, I'm big on being honest with what's going on with yourself. Every day that you wake up, how do I feel today? What do I need today? Being honest with those emotions. We all experience some type of suffering. And I was investigating. I'm also a PhD student, and I'm big on investigation and research. So I was investigating. I know our fellow leaders around here. So I wanted to know the real issues of young leaders that's in this conference. Like, what are the real issues when it comes on to mental health and that's impacting them? And suicide came up a lot. And I was not expecting that. I believe the underlying, because mental health, I believe, is like an iceberg. Everybody watched Titanic, right? What sunk Titanic? Was it the thing that you can see, or was it something beneath the surface? Beneath, right? So I see that we're treating symptoms, and that's exactly why I quit my city job. And like, I'm going on my own mission, because we're treating symptoms. We're treating alcoholism. We're treating, aggression. We're treating, you're just angry. We're treating symptoms. What else? There's another one that I can't think about. But beneath it, if you look beneath the surface, what's really going on with people is trauma. Trauma. And what is trauma? Trauma is any disturbing, distressing event. And it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be this thing like, I would say, extreme. In the extreme case, it looks like being in a war zone, being displaced. But on a lower level, it can be, I was in my 5th grade class, and my teacher embarrassed me. And from that day, I go inward. And I never speak up again. So trauma can be very extreme, and it can be very on the lower hand. And what's traumatic to me may not be traumatic to you. You and I can be in a car accident, and I get out fine. And you be like, I can never get in a car again. So trauma is the underlying root cause. It's the things on the surface, below the surface you cannot see, that's impacting our youths. And nobody's really talking about trauma. Everybody's talking about, you just need to get a job. You need to get more skills. I asked a couple people that I spoke to about mental health, or about about health issues when it comes on to young youths in Tanzania, and he said 2 of his friends committed suicide. I was like, really? What happened? What was going on? He was like, they have life. It was like there's life issues, and there's no space. The young people don't have a safe space to talk, especially the young men. He said that men, especially, I expect to just man up. And and women, I'm a woman, so I can relate. Like, we have safe spaces. We can just talk to a girlfriend and be like, girl. But imagine, we have safe spaces. We have safe spaces as women, but our men, they drink their pain away. And he was telling me, even one of his friends that committed suicide, they said he has an alcohol abuse issue. But that's what you see on the surface. But below it, It's something traumatic, depression, I feel alone, and I cannot speak my pain, so I drink my pain. I cannot verbalize my pain, so I eat my pain. So we're all experiencing some type of trauma, some type of mental, I would say, health issues. And not because you have a mental health issue, that means you have a mental illness. Only a psychiatrist can diagnose you with a mental illness, FYI. So I think that's it. I want to bring a healing tool that I use because suffering is a part of life. Suffering is just a part of life. But how do you remain grounded? How do you remain grounded in spite of? So when I get, I would say, flustered over, I'm stressed out, this is a technique that I use. I put my hands on my heart. So you can put your hands on your heart, both hands on your heart. Because the more you resist suffering is more it persists. So put your hands on your heart, both hands, and I invite you to breathe in. So when you're going to breathe in, you're breathing through your nose, and you're going to release it through your mouth. So breathe in through your nose, release through your mouth. And I'm going to invite you to say these words. Whenever you have any overwhelming feeling, you feel stressed out, you feel sadness, depression, all emotions are valid, and all emotions just need your acknowledgement. So I want you to invite suffering. Well, I'm not the one you invited, but I want you to say, suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself. May I give myself what I need. May I be compassionate to myself. And Mr. DJ, I wanted to play the song. I wanted to read something real quick while we get the music together. So people who experience trauma are 4 times likely to become alcoholic, 4 times likely to develop a sexually transmitted disease, 4 times likely to inject drugs, 3 times more likely to use antidepressant, 3 times more likely to be absent from work, 15 times more likely to commit suicide, 2.5 times more likely to smoke tobacco, 3 times more likely to have a serious job problem, 3 times more likely to experience depression. So the real problem is trauma, and we're not treating that, we're not talking about that. So this is one of my healing tool that I use is music, because it's simple, things that you can use in your everyday life to heal yourself, to soothe yourself. It's one of my favorite songs. So in spite of it all, one Africa, one people, in spite of it all, we're one of the strongest people. And our history have shown us that we have rise in spite of it all. In spite of it all, we continue to rise. And I want to remind you to continue to rise. And when you fall down, that's friggin' okay. It's friggin' okay. There's duality in healing. Give yourself that compassion you need when you're healing. It took you whatever year. It took me 35 years to become who I am. So it's going to take me another probably 35 years to heal, and that's okay. But give yourself the compassion you need and love you need. You deserve it. So that's my spill. Thank you.
Maybe we should just go. I think so, yeah. Let's take a moment. If our speakers are still here, can we have all of you in front there, please? All of our speakers, please. Lillian, Solomon, Given, Rio, Natasha. Can you all stand on the stage, please? I don't know about you, but this is how Africa look like, if you ask me. If you ask me what Africa looks like, this is how Africa looks like. We have our own digital solutions. We have our own way to create our own capital, human capital. We have our own way to tell our own stories. We have our own way to create our own identity. And we have our own ways to heal ourselves. So this is how Africa looks like. I don't know what to do after this, honestly. I don't think we have thought through this. You guys have messed us up. So I'm going to ask from this side, can we all stand, please? And from the bottom of your heart, are you guys feeling healed? Are you feeling inspired? Are you feeling moved? So let's give them the thank that it's deserving. I don't think if a clapping would help, but let's try, right? So I'm just going to give it to Sarah to close us and thank the team from there, Sarah, and then we'll go into entertainment.
Oh, my goodness, Abella. You didn't prepare me for this before. But just something, true story. Rio, it's fabulous to see him here. Ooh. Once upon a time, I have a company, Piccini Lifestyle, opened I don't know how many years ago. A fashion company. I started with a collection company, Kitenge and Sisal bags. This guy interned for me. And he would go to Kariakor and do shopping. Okay, we got this, Rahema. Wait, we got this. And Kisutu and bring the most fabulous fabrics. I'm sure I'm one of those people who did not understand what the hell he was doing. I just thought, draw me dresses and things like that. But my company is dormant. My husband restarted it last year, doing auto parts. But okay, you got this. You got this. You got this. You got this, Jamani. VP. Okay. But Natasha as well. You're fabulous. I met her when she first came, and she's like, I asked her, why did you come to Tanzania? And she's like, that's the only country that was open. So I left the US and came to Tanzania. But it's fabulous because I'm on a path, and I think we spoke about this. I'm not where I need to be, but I'm on a path. And it's good to see people like you. Abella, why did you give me the stage? Ooh! But anyways, my point was not to come here and cry. Listen, people, mini program director at TCDC, sikilizeni. Hamna kulia hapa, hamna kulia. But no, you guys are beautiful souls. Asanteni sana. It's been fabulous. Thank you for the stories, because you know what? If you're youth, if you've come to YouLead, You're talking about leadership. You're talking about... Tulikuwa tumekaa. Wait, Charles, can you come? Charles, please come. Charles, come, because I'm going to give you this privilege. So this Charles is my very good friend for many, many years. He lives in Arusha. Well, I just came to learn he lives in Arusha, but I know him from his hustle and bustle, and we've come from way, 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 yani sijui wapi kule. And he one day texted me, and he's like, Sarah, where are you? I'm like, I'm in Arusha. And he's like, what do you mean you're in Arusha? And I'm like, yeah, Nico River. Yeah, he's like, I've seen you, you know, so you una advertise something. I was like, you know, let's meet. So we met anyways, and I came to know he's now based here and doing things. This afternoon, I was just like, oh my God, I didn't text this guy, but this would be the most beautiful day for him. He's got a company that he struggled with to open in Tanzania, took it to Kenya to be opened, imagine. And he's thriving because our systems, what we're talking about, businesses and all, did not allow him to process that. But anyways, he knew this guy. He knows Lillian, and we're sitting at Mahali Cafe, and they're just sharing experiences. But the true thing, I came from that. They will not say, and they didn't say it here, but they're like, you know what, you see us on social media. You are, dude, you know, I want to meet you. I want your autographs. I want nini na nini. But at that point, I'm in struggle. Like, I don't even know this mountain that I'm climbing if I can make it. And there's somebody here admiring me. And for me, that was like, wow, we've just finished Pamoja Talks there. Because it was the real struggle that we experienced as youth, as people on the continent. But all to say, Nikwamba, Africa, Pia, we've got something. The togetherness, the unity. You know, Mama C yesterday tried to do something. People were running away from her. I did not understand. Because that's our heritage. And somebody came to tell us that is not cool, that is not the way to do things, you should not honor your ancestors, who would not. No, let us say we're going back to where we came from, because some were there, we were doing it right. Because hukum liko tupeleka, we're fumbling and we don't understand. Now why is Africa the most resource continent, yet we're failing, we're the back, so you tunaambiwa global south, so you developing country. Why? We should definitely say no to those narratives. We do not want them. Now, if it takes saying no to that, then let's say yes to our people. Let's say yes to this. Let's support them. And let's live that dream. So, asanteni sana for gracing us. Thank you guys for Pamoja Talks. It's powerful. We'll see you. I don't want it to end with YouLead. It should be something we do a series of all over throughout the year. Looking forward to see you guys. Have a good night. Asanteni sana. Karibuni tena.
It's time for Africa. There's gonna be music. Don't go. Let's celebrate, right? Let's go.
You a good soldier. Choose your battle. Pick up yourself, dust yourself, open the battle. You're on the front line, everyone's watching. You know it's just, we're getting over. The patience home, you feel it, but don't believe it. When you forget up, when you forget up, something I mean, Sangalewa. Cause this is Africa, Samina Mina, hey, waka waka, hey, Samina Mina, Sangalewa. Cause this is Africa, Samina Mina, hey, waka waka, hey, Samina Mina, Sangalewa. This time for Africa. When you forget 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 Samina Mina Sangalewa. This time for Africa, Samina Mina, hey, waka waka, hey, Samina Mina Sangalewa. This time for Africa, Samina Mina, hey, waka waka, hey, Samina Mina Sangalewa. This time for Africa. remember the Lord that will be.
We're gonna dance, we're gonna dance.
No matter where you go, remember the Lord that will lead you. That will lead you home. That will lead you home. Remember the Lord will lead you home. That will lead you home. No matter where you go, remember the Lord that will lead you home. That will lead you home. That will lead you home. Oh, 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 oh. When you forget that, when you forget that, Tamina mina zangalewa, this time for Africa. When you forget that, when you forget that, Tamina mina zangalewa, this time for Africa. Jambo, jambo, Tamina mina zangalewa, this time for Africa. Jambo, jambo, Tamina mina zangalewa, this time for Africa.
Hello. So we are going to have a dance, and then the wicker band will be back. Thank you.
One number.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Wapogolo mpo? Ya, tunapiga nyimbo moja inatoka Upogoloni. Haya, Wapogolo msajiandae na Upogolo. Ni vitu vya nyumbani.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Well, yeah, yo. Oh yeah, yo. Thank you.
Ayo mama, ayo, ayo, ayo mama, ayo, ayo, ayo mama, ayo, ayo, ayo mama, ayo, ayo.
Loke loke abatate. Loke loke abatate. Bachiteke koko babe.
Ambaki no ponya kambangwa.
Bachiteke koko babe.
Ambaki no ponya kambangwa.
Abetile byanda nyanyo boy.
Ambanya kambangwa.
Nakambanga nekana katindi bidi migulu katilu pago.
Mutwe katipano. Mutwe katipano.
Wo 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 wo.
Mutwe katipano.
Oh na masika yene. Apotile. Loke loke abatate. Loke loke abatate. Bachiteke koko babe.
Ambaki no ponya kambangwa.
Bachiteke koko babe.
Ambaki no ponya kambangwa.
Abetile byanda nyanyo boy.
Ambanya kambangwa.
Loke loke abatate. Loke loke abatate. Bachiteke koko babe.
Ambaki no ponya kambangwa.
Bachiteke koko babe.
Ambaki no ponya kambangwa.
Abetile byanda nyanyo boy.
Ambanya kambangwa.
Oh na masika yene. Apotile. 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 bado mpogote nyama.
Asante sana.
Thank you. Yeah, asante sana Plaza Kau.
Yeah.
Muziki ya kwetu. Asanteni sana.
Yeah.
Okay. Moto juu ya moto, ngoma juu ya ngoma, au sio? Kazi tukiwasha tu mdogo mdogo, au sio?
Yes. Oh, pombe sigara naweza wacha bila kung'ang'ana, ai, lakini hawa vijana vile nawapenda kama yana, ai. Oh, pombe sigara naweza wacha bila kung'ang'ana, lakini hawa vijana vile nawapenda kama ana, ai. Naweza wacha bila, lakini hawa vijana vile nawapenda kama ana, ai. Naweza wacha bila kung'ang'ana, lakini hawa si sana vile nawapenda kama sana. Nasikia walevi wote